you've played multiple sports growing up. You were very athletic, from badminton to swimming to tennis. Can you kind of talk about your childhood and how you kind of got involved in sports that kind of led you to tennis, which ultimately led you to pickleball?
Yeah, well, my mom was a professional team handball player. Growing up, sports was kind of a must, and I really enjoyed doing sports in general. And when I was 4 years old, the only sports that were open at that age were mostly soccer and tennis. So I grew up playing those two sports. I loved it. Tennis, I was naturally a little bit gifted, so I was kind of forced to stay into it a little bit more. I really enjoyed soccer because it was a team sport. And then growing up, my mom really wanted me to do team handball like she did, so I did that. And then at school, I discovered other sports such as rugby as well and things like this. So with my competitive mindset, I just enjoyed every sport. And at the age of 14, this is where I had a big decision to make whether I was going to go to pursue a career in soccer or tennis. And my parents pushed hard for tennis just for the fact that it's an individual sport, and they felt that it was going to bring the best out of me, where team sport, it's not the same, and you can get injured in soccer and be done. So tennis was my path, which led me to Spain and then to America. I went to college at Wichita State University playing tennis. After that, I was looking for a job and found a director position for pickleball. And I was like, well, if I'm going to be the director of pickleball, I better learn how to play pickleball.
What was it like competing in college tennis? How different was it from competing maybe professionally?
Yeah, it's totally different. For me, it was very tough because obviously coming from Europe, we play more in clay. My game fit good for hard court, so I was just learning and growing with the team. But what was very stressful for me was the fact that, when you play on the pro circuit or just tournaments in general in Europe, you can have a bad match and win and go through it, and then you play every day. If you win, you keep playing. Where in college, we played only once a week, and you had to show up and perform for the team. The team aspect was hard to understand a little bit because tennis is still very individual. Even though you play as a team, you're still alone on the court, right? Yeah. And then you have the pressure of the scholarship. I felt like there are 4.5 scholarship to give to 7 or 8 players, or 9 depending on your roster. So everyone is fighting for their life. We're all teammates, but we're also competing against each other indirectly. So that was very different for me, where the coach wants you to perform only. And I'm not talking to all coaches, but like most of the coaches, what they look for when they recruit you is to win for the school. So if you don't perform, it can be cutthroat as well. So for me, understanding that was different, where when you play on the tour, you're like building that relationship with your coach where you're very close. You can tell them everything. And so I think that was like harder to understand the team aspects on that end. But it was also super fun because you're always with 7 or 8 players on the roster or more, that are doing the same thing as you do, and you're with good players. It's fun, and you're traveling to every state, depending on your calendar, but you're traveling quite a lot too, and you can do school at the same time. So
you mentioned a little earlier that you got involved because you found a coordinating job for a pickleball company, and they actually asked you to play in order to promote and learn more about the sport. Did you ever think the slightest bit that you would turn that coordinating job into an actual career in pickleball?
At the time, this was in 2019, the sport was getting bigger and bigger, but there were not that big purses, and the tour was not made. The first tour was made in 2020, both tours, PPA and APP. So, when I was playing in 2019, the first few tournaments, I thought, oh, that's interesting. Can I actually make money out of this? And I played against the number 1 player in the world at the time, and he was nice enough to tell me what he was making and if it made sense, and for me to try. And I gave it a shot, and I'm glad I did, because the sport has grown so much since then, and things are evolving constantly.
Do you remember your first professional pickleball competition? And What was it like? What was the feeling like when you actually won your first pickleball competition as a professional?
My first was US Open, the Pickleball US Open 2019. I remember playing in singles. It was pretty nervous, but I played a French Canadian, so he spoke French a little bit to me, and I remember being they at the US Open there are like 52 courts, I think at the time it was. So they put me on court 50 or something like this, and I was like, oh man, they put me on the furthest court and everything I was looking for, but it's a stadium court. So I got to play my first professional match on the stadium court, so I didn't know where it was. So I was looking around a lot. So I will remember this all my life because I played on a big court, won that match. And then I did actually fairly good my first tournament. I lost in quarters to Ben Jones, who is the number one player. And so that was like kind of my the mindset, hey, I can do this. I want to do this. And at the time, there were no qualies. So I was lucky enough to be in main draw and do well right away. Now it's much tougher because, again, the sport has grown so much that you have to go through qualies, build your points to be in order to go to the main draw or pass through qualies. So, I remember that 2019, April.
What is your biggest goal in pickleball?
Personally, my biggest goal is to be the best player as I can be. I'm putting the work, as much work as possible to become the best player in the world. For me, the goal ultimately is to be number one in doubles at some points, number one in mixed, and number one in singles. My goal is always to just keep pushing and being at the top of the game, pretty much.